Hello, everyone. Jason Hagholm here, back with another edition here of Jason and the Gentleman, episode 58. And to do this, as always, I need the gentleman of mixed martial arts, the gentleman, Josh Hill. Josh, how are you doing? Apologize, everyone. We're running a little late, but you know what? Better late than never.
Sorry, that's my fault, guys. Dealing with toddler drama. All good now. Delayed me a few
Well,
minutes.
yeah, well, you know what? I'm sure you put your gentlemanly skills, your good fatherly skills together to de-escalate the situation.
Try not to go nuts. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Josh, it was a very interesting UFC pay-per-view this past Saturday. One with I thought all in all, pretty much every fight was pretty good on the card, with the exception of one fight. But the main event of this card for the UFC Middleweight Championship, Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker, to the rematch from their fight a couple years ago out in Australia. I thought this was a very technical fight, and really you got to see, I thought, what the brilliance of what Israel Adesanya is, where he makes the opponent kind of dictate what he wants to do. He just kind of reacts, or if there's an opening, he's going to take what the opponent gives to him. Israel Adesanya won the fight on the scorecards, unanimous decision, but two judges had it pretty close, 48-47. Overall, Josh, what did you think of the event and overall Israel Adesanya's performance?
So I only got to watch the two last fights, co-main and main. As the time we got back to the place we were staying at, that's all I could catch, but they were great. I thought it was very close, man. Yeah, I think I had it 3-2 Whittaker, dude.
So you're one of those that had it for Whittaker.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to watch it again. I had a couple pops in me too. But I'd have to, sit down and watch again. But it was very close. It wasn't a robbery for sure. But besides the first round, that was the only dominant round of the fight. I think the other 4 rounds, man, just kind of depending how they score it and how much they score certain things more than others. I thought it was extremely close going to that scorecard, and I was like, man, I think it could be 3-2 Whittaker right now.
So did you give the last 3 rounds to Whittaker, like rounds 3 through 5?
I think I gave him 4 and 5. It might have been 2. I can't remember. It was either 2 or 3 or 3, 4, 5. One of the two. But 4 and 5 for sure.
See, it's interesting because that's kind of been the discussion point. Is a lot of people, there were some in the media that did give it to Whittaker. The majority gave it to Adesanya, pretty close as well. But the narrative now is that Whittaker probably could have won that fight. And what did you see that made you decide to give the fight to Whittaker? Because I gave it 48-47 for Adesanya because I just thought he did enough. But I'll hear your side. Why did you think Whittaker won the fight, Josh?
I think later he was the biggest thing I saw was he was landing his jab, and like Bisping kept saying, he was left hand oriented the whole fight, left hooks and jabs, and wasn't following up with his crosses or anything like that. And I think the reason why every time he jabbed, Adesanya would pull and come back with a cross of his own, and he was just kind of scared to get hit the exchange. I think that's what actually got him knocked out in the first fight. So he was worried about that, but by doing that, he was a little bit more defensive, but he was still popping his jab quite a bit and sticking him hard in the face with it. He got the takedowns, took the back. I know he didn't get to like really solidify the takedowns too long, but did get the back out at 1 or 2 points. I think it was and then Adesanya did have a lot of nice leg kicks. He was chopping his leg up nice and good. Man, I just thought that he was getting a little bit better of the striking as far as headshots, not saying everything, but and then with the wrestling and grappling that it did happen. Man, again, it wasn't like I wasn't bitter about it, but I could see people giving it to him.
Well, it's been a big narrative that a lot of people actually have thought Whittaker won the fight. I gave it to Adesanya because I thought Adesanya, as you said, the leg kicks were scoring very well. Even in the striking elements, I thought it was Adesanya that was landing the better shots, or even, the kicks to the body. And while Whittaker got those takedowns, and I still was impressed at how kind of easily at times he was able to get the fight to the ground, Adesanya popped right back up. Really, no damage was done or anything when Adesanya was on the ground. And there was that beautiful moment where Whitaker took the back, but as soon as the back was taken, it was Adesanya coolly removing the hands and just getting the separation. And Whitaker didn't capitalize on that, didn't follow it up with a strike where they had that little moment where he could have maybe followed up, landed a big shot, and gave the space for Adesanya, where that's where he wanted to work and do most of his offense.
I kept like yelling it when I was watching the fight, and a lot of people do this, even at the highest level. Obviously, these guys are the two best in the world, but people jump the back too soon a lot of times, and it's great when you get it and you solidify and you get hooks in. But a lot of guys are good at getting back up to their feet and defending that, right? Like just like Adesanya did, he's very good. Like, get his hips back, he fights the hands, and then he's out of there. So I wish he would have, right when this starts happening, continue chain wrestling. You know what I mean? You have that back for a second. Instead of trying to jump your hooks in, drag them back to the mat. You know what I mean? A little, hip heist before, make him put his weight forward, make him put his hands on the mat, pepper him a little bit, just make him, and that makes you tired too. I mean, for both guys, but especially the guy trying to get out of there. So yeah, I wish he did that a little bit more chain wrestling to try and continue to wear him out, especially if he did it in, rounds 2, 3, and 4. But I mean, yeah, like I said, overall, it was super close. The one thing everybody's like, oh, you got to beat the champ to take the belt. You know what I mean? But I get it. But if you're going by a 10-9 point system round by round, it shouldn't be like that. If you judge the fight in its entirety and it was that close, then I could see people saying that. But with the rounds of points, it doesn't make sense.
I think when it comes down, I mean, I understand what you're saying is that a lot of people don't like that. You got to beat the champion. But in a fight like that, where it's so technical and close, you kind of got to have a couple big moments in the fight that the judges can remember and the fans can remember. There were sure takedowns, but not a lot of damage, not a lot of success. And the time on the ground was minuscule. It was maybe 2 minutes, 2.5 at most. So Whitaker didn't have that big moment or anything that could go home, I guess, relying on. And in a fight where it's a point style fight, and that kind of played into the advantage I thought that Adesanya wanted. Like, he's coming from that kickboxing background. He wants to land at will. He had the space to land at when he wanted to, and he did. And that's why I think he won the fight. I thought if Whitaker fought the 5th round, like the whole fight where he had Adesanya up against the fence, grinding him up against there, landing some good little short shots, he may have actually probably won the fight, but he only fought that round in the final round where it was just too little too late.
Yeah, he should have started. I know he got caught in the first round and dropped. Who knows how hurt he was trying to get his bearings back and his confidence back too. 100%. He should have done that from the get-go, wear him down, and then look to open up a little bit there. And like I was saying, he was so worried about that counter because Adesanya is so long and he pulls back and comes back to the counter. So thinking like 2 moves ahead in chess, you got to like kind of draw that out. It's coming. So popped it out there, expect that counter, pull yourself, and then come back in and blitz it with more shots. So easier said than done, obviously. But yeah, it was super close, man. But I thought I had Whitaker edging him out, but there was no crying over that one,
Well, Adesanya, so he wins the fight. Now, obviously, it maybe not the most spectacular performance that we're used to seeing from Adesanya, but as we've talked about before, you can't always have that highlight reel knockout or everything like that anytime, especially in a fight like this where it was, 2 guys playing chess at the highest level where who was going to make the bigger move. And Adesanya ultimately got the bigger moves in and ended up, I guess, kinging and crowning Robert Whitaker in that fight. But do you think that performance hurts Adesanya's stock in some ways, Josh? Because he just signed a new deal. He's now apparently like the 2nd highest paid guy in the UFC per his management and paradigm. Do you think a performance like that hurts him, or is it just the stylistic matchup and 2 guys that have fought before and you're just making those adjustments?
I don't think it hurts him, man. How do you get hurt off a win? You know what I mean? Like that, especially at the highest level, especially against a guy like Whitaker, who's no doubt the number 2 guy in the world. You know what I mean? So no, I don't think it hurts him. Yeah, especially for fans that know what they're watching and understand the sport. Like, you're watching 2 technicians, 2 masters playing chess, and you're not always going to get the finish, and you're always going to get the highlight reel. And sometimes when you're watching, I find it super entertaining watching such high level fights going on, such high IQ. I enjoy it. But I'm obviously a fighter and a fight fan, so I'm a little different than your average UFC fan at the bar.
For sure. That's just, laying their DraftKings and wanting their chicken wings
Yeah,
to go
yeah,
along with it. But, watching that fight, I thought the performance from Adesanya was spectacular and just shows why he's probably one of the best mixed martial artists in the world right now. And it kind of reminded me of like Michael Jordan in his career. Like we know Adesanya can go in there, he can blitz you, he can have that great knockout. But a lot of people were like, oh, Michael Jordan, he can only score baskets and do slam dunks. He can't play
no,
defense or anything like that. So what did Michael Jordan do the next year? He won Defensive Player of the Year. And it
yeah,
was kind of like Adesanya proving that, like, look, I can be in these technical fights that can sometimes be boring. Like I did it with Yoel Romero. It was not a great fight, but his next fight, he came back and just blew Paulo Costa, and back to his hotel with, wine. So, he can have a performance that's not, the most exciting, but it just showcases how well-rounded he is and how much, he takes advantage of what an opponent gives you. Like, any great athlete would be like, whether it's a Michael Jordan or what a Tom Brady did, whatever a defense gives you, take advantage of it and succeed off of that.
yeah. Styles make fights too, right? This is a fight where Whitaker got, was doing decent in that first round too, or in the first fight and was right there with him until he got caught with that hook. I think it was a left hook, and finished him. So he made adjustments. Obviously, that's what I was saying. Like he was very, very weird to come back with a cross or anything from the right side because he didn't want to get countered. So you have your opponent who's already high level making adjustments from your previous fight. You're trying to adjust to that. So it's chess fighting, it's just the high level. So, yeah, man, I don't think his stock was down at all. Goes up.
Where do you think Robert Whitaker goes from here, though, Josh? Because it looks like Adesanya is going to be champion here for quite a
Yeah.
while. You've
He's
lost
been,
twice to Israel Adesanya. One time you got finished, and the other time now a very close fight on the scorecards, with two judges giving Whitaker two of the 5 rounds. But I just don't know where you go here with Whitaker. Like, still a very elite level middleweight, but it's going to be a while before he can find himself in the running for fighting for a title with Adesanya as the champion.
he's in that spot. He's in the, where he's in the Joseph Benavidez spot to Demetrius Johnson. He's in the Holloway to Volkanovski. He's in the Kobe to Usman. All these guys that are extremely talented, and they're the number 2 guys in the division. But yeah, they've lost to the champ twice now. Does it warrant a third one? Not right away, right? So he's going to have to go back or if the champion changes hands, maybe, if somebody else comes in and beats him. But yeah, I mean, he's still, like I said, the number 2 guy in the world. It's a difficult spot though, because now you're going to be facing the top of the heap guys trying to get that title shot, but you're not going to get your title shot for at least a while, right?
Well, it puts him in that spot where do you match make him? Like, you can instantly kind of get him back in that mix. Like, I was thinking maybe a Sean Strickland, because Sean Strickland, he just came off a performance that was great, but wasn't spectacular, and he knows that he needs that spectacular performance. I think that fight would make a lot of sense. Or maybe a Marvin Vettori as well. Like, those are the guys that Whitaker's gonna face again. He's got to go back through the ladder, and if he warts them off, then I don't know. I mean, do we get a third fight eventually? But that's definitely down the line. But I think maybe we could see a Sean Strickland or like a Vettori or one of those type guys next for a Robert Whitaker.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think a Strickland's perfect because I think, yeah, he's not going to get the title shot most likely off of that last fight. And I think a win over the former champ will obviously definitely propel him there. And with Vettori, he's already fought for the belt as well. So he fights Whitaker. Does he get a shot? Probably not yet. You know what I mean? So I think Strickland is an opportunity for him to really, to propel himself for 100% into the title shot if he gets that win. Because I think that Cannonier is next, right? Most likely.
Yeah.
Right. So they already got your guys set. So you need to build up some contenders. So yeah, I think that one would be great. I think you're right.
Well, as you touch on Cannonier, he did fight on this card, fought Derek Brunson in a fight that was very pivotal for the middleweight division. But I found it odd all week. Like, there was no buzz or talk from the UFC. Like, they weren't at the pre-fight press conference on Thursday, which is bizarre considering there's usually a bunch of fights highlighted at those things. And it was just the main and co-main event. And we didn't have, them really trying to set up the next contender in line for Israel Adesanya. And this is a division now where it's getting going. They're getting those contenders, but UFC is usually like thinking two to three, fights in that division down the line, especially for a title. And they didn't have that highlighted, but Jared Cannonier made people, realize why you got to put respect on his name with a good performance. Got taken down early, nearly finished at the end of the first round, but Derek Brunson got tired and paid the price, got clipped with a good elbow, a backhand, and then some nasty elbow by Cannonier to finish it. And he said on the post-fight, he turned blonde Brunson into blood Brunson, which I thought, great line. And now he's, probably next in line for that middleweight title.
Yeah, probably. I mean, who else right now when you got a champ that's kind of run through everybody, and just Whitaker was lost the close fight. And I would imagine you just want some new, fresh blood in there. Somebody that's not a rematch again, like a Costa or Whitaker for third time, or Vittori again, or, so yeah, I think, to the credit of his own from having great win, but also lack of other contenders, I think it puts him in the spot.
Well, plus Brunson, Jared Cannonier, at this weight class, he's only lost one time, and the guy he lost to was a decision loss to the guy that fought for the title in Whitaker. So, I mean, you're in great standing. You haven't lost at middleweight. You proved that middleweight's the perfect weight for you. And as you said, I think they want fresh blood. Like Adesanya post-fight kind of called for the fight with Jared Cannonier. Dana even seemed kind of interesting enough at the post-fight press conference about it, and he's never really committal to something, but he wasn't committal, but you could tell he was more interested in that than any fight that's usually thrown at him after a pay-per-view. So I think it makes the most sense, too. As we said, that division needs some new faces, and Adesanya needs some new opponents. I know a lot of people are like, well, Canada doesn't have a chance, but he may not, but it's his turn at the crack at the title.
Yeah, I mean, tell me who else you put in there, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's pretty much it. They need those contenders. But what did you think as well, though? Like, you think a fight of this high level guys in the division that aren't even getting promoted or anything like that.
Yeah.
I just thought that was bizarre for the UFC. They're usually very good at marketing things down the line.
Yeah, and you think they put them on this card for a reason, having them, underneath the title fight. Maybe also something happened, right? But yeah, they should be pumping those up because they got to build up a possible contender for either Whitaker or Adesanya, whoever was going to win that. So, I think, lack of foresight, I guess.
Yeah, very odd. I know Brunson being in there, and I think the UFC in some capacity is always kind of written off Brunson. Like they always try to use whoever they put Brunson in there with as the stepping stone to the next, whether it was Edmund Shabazian, and the whole highlight and build up to this was he trained with Ronda Rousey. He's the next face of this division, and Brunson went out there and beat him. Or, Kevin Holland, who was coming off that awesome 2020, 5 fights, one in a year, and they're like, oh, Kevin Holland's the next guy, and Brunson goes out there and wins. So it's like the UFC's just never been committal with a Derek Brunson situation, him around, and they didn't feel like committing to him, and I guess it hands out for him that he doesn't win. But you know what? Give Brunson credit. He fought hard, earned his way in there, and nearly did finish, had a chance to finish Cannonier, just ran out of time in that first round.
Yeah, man. I mean, it sucks anytime losing, but you're right up there in the top 5, right? So shit happens, man, when you're fighting these high level guys all the time, right?
Exactly. And then, let's channel to the co-main event where fight you did see Tai Tuivasa, Derek Lewis, 2 heavyweights, Derek Lewis fighting in his hometown again, where in this circumstance, I thought he definitely was more relaxed, no titles on the line, no pressure, just go out there and, just swang and bang, as he likes to say, against Tai Tuivasa, who has had a 3-fight losing streak at one point in this division, is now on a 5-fight win streak, and picks up his most impressive win in the UFC with an elbow from hell on Derek Lewis, dropping him. And good for Tai Tuivasa. This guy, I think a lot of people had written off and probably didn't give him a chance in this fight. They thought if the knockout would happen, it'd be Lewis on Tuivasa. It went vice versa. And now Tai Tuivasa in the mix in this heavyweight division for a title shot in a very interesting times too in the heavyweight division right now.
Yeah, man. I like both these guys, right? They're both characters and funny. And obviously knockout power. Probably the two best in the division, other than Nagano. Those three. But yeah, man, I picked Lewis to win. I thought, I thought there would be a knockout for sure, but whoever got it first, But yeah, man, and he took some shots in the first round too,
Yeah.
and looked like he was, if you clipped him right maybe on the directly on the chin, or different little angle, it might have been over, but he withstormed it and withstood it, and weathered through the storm, and yeah, man, good for him, and just kind of went through the hell and came out on top, and then put it on him, and I think he hurt him a bit before Derek, and Derek was like, maybe in his head, maybe like, he's not out of here yet. You know what I mean? That's kind of usually when that guy hits people, they don't come back, right? But and then that nasty elbow over the top and the clinch right on the chin, forearm, and just kind of it was good for him, man. Huge win.
Before we look at the stakes of, I guess, where Tai Tuivasa goes, because I think UFC kind of hit a jackpot with this guy now on the win streak he's on. The shoeys are just like everywhere every time he fights. He's even got his own company now selling these like mock shoes that you can funnel a beer out of. Even Dana did one after the night of fights were over. But there's this theory going around, Josh. I don't know if you've seen this, but that Derek Lewis took a dive, which I think is the dumbest theory I have ever heard. Why would he take a dive? Or people are saying that he, took a dive, took a fake bump, and he went down not how a knocked out person would look like. I don't even know where this comes from, but this is one of the most illogical theories I've ever heard of.
Well, it's the same people that I guess thought Tyron Woodley took a dive when he got knocked out.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
I disagree. But if that was a setup fight, if it was rigged, if it was, thrown, why was Derek trying to get him out of there as hard as he could in the first round? You know what I mean? So that kind of fight, if he continued on and knocked him out, then what? You screwed up everything. You're supposed to go down in a second. So I just think that's bullshit, and people are just always looking for, an excuse to, it's rigged, it's this, it's corrupt, which so many things are nowadays. So fair, but yeah, I don't think that was one.
But why would they UFC on like a show of that, especially with that sports weekend too, where they kind of do these shows around the Super Bowl and things of that nature? Like, why would you rig something of the sort that's gonna? I just don't understand why they would rig anything. That would be like the end of the UFC if it was determined that they were rigging fights or anything like that, like pro wrestling. But I just don't understand where people have spent this much time on the internet to come up with theories and trying to identify the body language of how someone knocked out supposed to fall. Like what are you doing? That's when you need to get off the internet and take a break, go for a walk, something. I don't know. But to think Derek Lewis and the UFC rigged this fight, like, why would they rig it too? Derek Lewis is like one of their favorite heavyweights.
Yeah, that's what I mean. In this case, it's not even a question. Both these guys, they love. I don't think they. I mean, other ones you could maybe say like, you can question it a bit more. It's still unrealistic, but you can question it more. But these ones, no.
Look, like the Tyron Woodley getting knocked out by Jake Paul, there is like that weird moment where he drops his hand and then the punch comes.
Yeah.
But I still don't think Tyron Woodley's like, yes, I'm going down to ruin my fighting career for all the money in the world. Granted, he's making great money, but he's not ruining his career for, a 30-second KO.
Also, when you take a dive, you don't go unconscious like that. You take a dive, you get hit, and you're like, you go down, and you man, put the act on. This guy was sleeping for a minute. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think you do that and risk brain damage and put yourself completely out like that. Yeah, no way.
Like, if you want to see a rigged boxing fight, the former NFL player Mark Gastineau, he turned to boxing in the early 90s, and he fought this pro wrestler Ricky Rice, and he landed a punch, and like Ricky took a full-on professional wrestling bump, like just flailing and dying out there. Like, that is a rigged fight where you barely touch the guy, and they go down like they've been shot by a sniper. But there's no way Derek Lewis or the UFC would manufacture any work of all in this. I just can't believe that this is an actual theory going around. But back to Tuivasa, as I was saying, I think the UFC, while they love Derek Lewis and Derek Lewis is willing to do them any favors, fight for any dollar that they give him, because he's just such a good company guy. I think they get a win here with Tai Tuivasa. He's still only like 26 years old, so tons of room to improve. As I said, this shoey thing is just like everywhere. Like everyone wants to do a shoey every time he's around. Like media are doing it. Obviously, the fans are. It's kind of taken off by its storm. Plus, he's a heavyweight that can crack. Like turning a 3-fight losing streak into now a 5-fight win streak with all 5 of those wins coming by finishes in the first or early second. Like he's a credible heavyweight and finds himself in that interesting spot with the division that their champion now not only has a contract dispute, but has knee surgery. So he's out for, 9 months. So you probably figure at some point there's an interim title, and Tai Tuivasa sets himself up to potentially fight for it.
Yeah, I can't believe he's only 26.
He's so young.
I thought he was way older than that, man. But yeah, for sure. I think it's huge for them. It's great. He's exciting. He's got character. Everybody loves him. He's a nice guy. It seems. I don't know him, but he seems like a super nice guy. Yeah, and the heavyweight. It's always hard to find great heavyweights. And right now with everything that's going on, I mean, I'm on Nagano's team as far as when it comes to the pay structure and things like that. But with their champ potentially being out or whatever's going to happen there, yeah, there's a huge opportunity for a guy like him to kind of get in there and make a bigger name than he already has.
Sorry, Tuivasa, 28 years old, so I made him younger by 2 years, but still a young heavyweight, someone born in 1993, and will be 20. And be 29 in a month's time. So, yeah, still young, still improving, and a guy that was training with Mark Hunt at one point. So, he's taken some, I'm sure, bigger shots in sparring with Mark Hunt than most heavyweights can throw at him.
Yeah, 100%. I hope he didn't take too many of them and keep this career and this chin intact and, can withstand it. But, yeah, for sure, man, training with a guy like that, at one time the hardest hitter in the division in the world, yeah, that's
and K1 champion too. So like excellent level striker of the highest degree. But I mean, like we said, Tuivasa now puts himself in a spot where I could see him fight Cyril Gane, for an interim title, or probably Gane's the only one I'm really interested in. And then now Lewis, sets himself back. But when you look at the heavyweights, Josh, as you say, like heavyweights kind of a unique division.
Yeah.
Well, we got like not Derek. We have Curtis Blades and Chris Daukaus. That's coming up soon. I could see, do you get a Daukaus rematch? Do you get a Curtis Blades for a second time? Lewis seems like a guy, like we said, that will kind of fight anyone given him the opportunity. Like also on the London card, Tom Aspinall, who's a heavyweight out of England. That seems like a guy that as well you could, use Lewis for that type of a fight to see how well Aspinall can handle somewhat of that striking pedigree. But there are options, but I think it'll be a while before we see Derek Lewis near, or maybe never again, near potentially getting a shot at a title.
Yeah, agreed, for sure.
So that was pretty much the main, and looking, unfortunately didn't get to see the rest of this card, Josh. There were some pretty good fights, especially in your division. The Douglas Silva D'Andrade versus Sergey Morozov, really one worthy of checking out. Morozov hurts Silva D'Andrade early in the first round, could have maybe finished him, and then in the second round, the tide switches. Silva D'Andrade turns the tide, hurts Morozov, and then eventually gets the submission victory with the rear naked choke. A couple guys stepping in on much notice early, and then we had an interesting situation. I don't know if you followed it, but William Knight, who was supposed to fight at light heavyweight,
I saw that,
weighed in at 218 pounds. So they were like, we'll just make it a heavyweight fight, which fine 40%. So, your fines are going up, which I know makes you happy in some aspect, but like, what are we doing? Like, if you're willing to sign a contract, even though you're like, oh, I wasn't in the best weight going into it, then why sign the contract?
Yeah, I mean, that's just obviously extremely unprofessional. Like, he went up 2 weight classes, essentially. If it wasn't heavyweight, he would have up another one, right? If that was, 45er going up to 70, really. I'm surprised they let the fight happen. being 12 pounds difference. And that should be more than 40%, I would say. At least 50%, man. At least.
I was just more like, wow, they didn't even really like care or pull him or anything. Like they're like, oh, we'll just move it up a weight class. We'll just make it a heavyweight fight. Like there's got to be some sort of repercussions or something on William Knight going forward. And this, I mean, look, he is a light heavyweight and he has made the light heavyweight limit, pretty much every time out there. But to take a fight on short notice when you know you have no chance in hell of making the light heavyweight limit. The fight? He said he took it on like 2 weeks' notice. He was like 242 pounds. He's a naturally like muscular guy, but you've got to know, like, there's no way I'm cutting like 40 pounds off my body in 2 weeks.
I mean, that's happened before. I mean, that happened with Ronson, Jesse. I remember when he got the call back and then he said he can make the weight and he couldn't make the weight. And then they were like so pissed. And they said he never fight there again. Eventually he got another opportunity, but yeah, I'm surprised that there's no more major backlash than that. You know what I mean? Because that's 12 pounds, man. It's like, that's insane.
What is going on right now in the sport with weight misses? Because they're getting bigger and there's not as much
bigger and bigger and bigger, bro. And it's just like these guys are getting huge. And like I've been around a long time in this sport. When I first came around, I was a pretty big bantamweight. Definitely not small, that's for sure. And nowadays, if you look, like I'd say I'm like average at best right now, probably, because there's guys walking around. I know some guys will walk around like in the 70s they get up to, and they fight to 35 and they're coming down, and then by the time they get in the cage, they're like 160, 158, 155, whereas I get in the cage and I'm like 46, you know what I mean? So it's like, these guys are getting bigger and bigger because they just want the advantage, right? So they're cutting more and more and more, and then you might be able to make it here and then there, but then your body, if you don't do it 100% perfect, if you're off a little bit, it might just say screw you and just shut down and stop sweating, and that's why you're seeing a lot of weight misses, I think.
Well, that's what William Knight said, that his body just stopped sweating, like he couldn't cut any more weight because his body kind of in some capacity gave out on him. But it's just kind of crazy that the sport's advanced so much and we're just seeing people miss weight, and they're not like 1 pound, or these are like 3 to 7 pound weight misses. And, Knight's case, like 12 pounds, which is an anomaly. But we're seeing even heavyweights miss weight, which is astonishing to me. Like even UCA Formega, who's trying to get back into the UFC, fought at bantamweight, a natural flyweight, but it's fighting at bantamweight, and he missed by like 3 pounds. Like that just, like, what do you do? What is going on? And I know,
but my last fight with Scoggins, he had fought at flyweight before in his past and then missed bantamweight, right? So I just, I also think a lot of times guys go, okay, I'm going to go up a weight class, so it's not going to be as bad, so I can put on some size, and they just start eating like crazy, or they put on more muscle, and then they get too big for that next division, right? And they think it'd be an easy cut. And then I'll tell you one thing too, once you, like, when you're cutting weight and you're getting to that last, like, under 2 pounds and below, or maybe more for some guys, but that usually the threshold is that last 2 pounds. It's like, if you stop sweating, it's so hard to start sweating again, right? Because if you get out of the sauna or the bath, whatever you're doing, and then you just like take too long of a break, it like takes that much longer to get your body back sweating again, because your body just like doesn't have much left, right? So I think that's another reason why you're seeing a lot of these misses, because their body just quits, right? So it's you're saying the sport's advancing, but this issue hasn't at all, and we're still dealing with it because we haven't changed any rule sets, right? So,
well, that was gonna be my next question. It's just like running rampant, and it seems like we have like this time in the sport where you see a lot of guys miss weight, and then everyone, like a couple cards, everyone's on weight, making weight, and you're like, oh, maybe everyone's kind of figured it out. And then we're in this stretch now where like a William Knight misses by 12, or a UCA Formega who's trying to get back to the UFC, has a great win, but UFC is going to look at you like, bro, you missed weight by 3 pounds. We cannot bring you in a division that you're not normally fighting in to give you that extra, threshold to make weight. Regional scene as well. I saw a guy miss weight as well, fighting for a title that he dominated the fight, but he couldn't win the title because he missed weight. So do we now really need to seriously consider the extra weight classes, that 5-pound gap that, has been talked about? Or do we just need to have much more stricter fines? Because it seems like the mentality right now is, I'll miss weight, whatever, who cares? I'll give up 40%. Who cares?
I think fines, for me, because I think you add the weight classes in. I mean, I would like that, as I could make 130, no problem. 25 would be tough for me. But 30 would be great. That'd be perfect. But I'm saying, then you have somebody that, kills themselves to make 35, be like, okay, well, it's only an extra 4 or 5 pounds. I could do that. And then they push themselves down to that one, just trying to get every single advantage as possible. And I think you still run into the same problems. So for me, it's fines. The fines don't work well in regional shows at all, because, here you're taking 30% of your $400, here's your whatever, it's nothing. It's like peanuts, right? So it doesn't have that big of an effect. But when you get into big money, and somebody's getting 100K a fight, and you take 50% of their money, here's 50 grand, that's a big difference, right? So and I think and it has to start from the top down. So I think that's kind of the way to go, in my opinion.
So here's the thought I just had in my head, that as you were discussing that. So in soccer, if you play enough games and you accumulate, like you get a yellow card this game, don't your next game, whatever, you're accumulating enough yellow cards, it equals a suspension. If you miss weight, especially like a William Knight, for example, by that much, like, not only should your fight be pulled, but you should be suspended an X amount of time, or something of that, to teach the fighter a lesson, or something. Because fighters are going in here missing weight, like people are going to work and showing up late, and there's no real repercussion. You just keep doing it until there's an actual serious repercussion that normally hurts you in the pocketbook. And if they're even not willing to care 40%, then you have to make the fines even higher, or, give them a couple months off to, come up with a strategy of how you're going to make weight, or something along those lines.
Yeah, you could definitely do something like that. Or, and you could also, people talked about implementing, like, you lose a point, going into
get down on the scorecards already, a 10-8 round going in.
Yeah, things like that. That's another route you could look at. Yeah, man, it's tough. That's why it's still an issue, because nobody's really figured it out. And then you could do like the moderating the body weight. You can only cut so much, but that's a lot of like eyeballs on people, and like having them weigh in, seeing what they weigh, and percentage of their body, and make sure they're not going up. And you're not going to get that at the regional level, really, because this is just too hard to kind of to monitor. So yeah, I don't know, man. It's difficult. I wish that you show up fight day and you weigh in at this weight, and
there are some promotions in Europe that do that.
Do they? Yeah. And I
so
mean,
there's the promotion in Sweden for sure, that you weigh in and you can't win X amount of certain body percentage as you step to the cage. Like, you have to be kind of to make an evil playing field, because as you're talking about, like, bantamweights are lightweights on fight day.
Yeah. So I guess the only risk you run with that is you might lose fights last second, right? Because if this guy's going to the cage and then he's way too big, like, fight's off, and then everybody's already there, and it's like, what do you do, right? So that would be an issue, I guess. But I would like that, because if I fight at my walking around weight, like right now, I would be all for that. I know who wants to cut weight, you know what I mean? Like, I don't enjoy it. I don't like to, So yeah, I'd be all for that, but it comes with some complication.
But maybe then you throw those rules of, all right, you're over that. You didn't follow the rules. You're going to be down 2 points on the scorecards. Like, you got to follow it. Or, and so, like, I know in Japan, because they take weight misses very serious there. Like, you're pretty much disqualified. Like, you can go fight, but you can't win.
You can't win. Yeah. Or something like, I guess it would be like the same as losing 50%, but like, you lose your show money because you didn't show. I mean, you showed, but you missed weight. You know what I mean? So that goes to your opponent, and they can only you can only have a chance to win money, right? Although I hate the show and win thing anyways, but yeah, there's options you can go on. It's such a complicated subject that we've been dealing with for the last 30 years.
It's kind of one of those things where you just need the commissions to all come together, and probably starts with like a Nevada or a California where they make some sort of change and make it strict, because like I said, it's just people just showing up late for work. No one cares. It's that relaxed boss, like, whatever, but you're still going to be there. I don't know. It's just
you have to really
something.
explain if you did the point thing where if like you weighed in right before you fought and then you're down, like the average casual wouldn't understand, like, oh, why is this guy lost when he won the fight, or it was close, you know what I mean? Like, you'd have to really educate people on that one.
You would, but you know what? It would maybe straighten, MMA out as a whole, and people, showing up and being professional and making weight. And, if you agree to fight a certain weight class, you're not going to just miss weight by 12 pounds because you can't cut the weight anymore. Like, that's not a great look. And, last thing on the UFC 271 show, Josh, obviously Joe Rogan wasn't there, even though apparently, like, he had a scheduling conflict, though Dana White said he didn't have a scheduling conflict. So I don't know why they needed to lie. Just say he's not going to be on the show due to probably the circumstances going on around him. Just be honest with people about that.
Well, I think their concern was they didn't want to make it look like they were like censoring him, shutting him down, and not letting him, like, cutting him from the promotion because of what's going on. You know what I mean? So I think they wanted to make sure.
I think everyone knows the UFC wouldn't. They have a great relationship. It's now the affiliations that they have with ESPN, who are owned by Disney, and Disney pretty much owns everything. And look, I understand. If you're gonna give the guy the show off, even though you originally committed him not being there, we understand why you want to take this week off. I would understand why this pay-per-view, him being off, would be on there. I just don't know why they had to like throw this lie in there that they even like said wasn't true. It just was weird. But Bisping being on there with DC and Anik, I thought that was a great combo. I know they've done a couple shows like fight nights before, but I love hearing Bisping's take on fights. Like, I think Bisping's the guy that I would love to see on these pay-per-views more often.
Yeah, I don't mind. He's not bad. Not bad. I don't mind. I think I like Paul Felder better.
I love Felder, yes.
Yeah, if I had to take a choice. But yeah, I like Bisping. Yeah, he does a good job.
I thought Bisping and DC also gel really well, where DC sometimes can be just a little too overbearing with some of his commentary. But they kind of like level each other out. So I thought that was a nice little addition, even though Bisping was like on super short notice. But I thought Bisping did a bang up job. And as I say, last thing on the show, Josh, I don't know if you didn't get to see this, but there were two fights back to back where one judge, Judge Rob Alexander, clearly wasn't watching any of the fights, nearly ruined a couple fights on this that he had. So he gave a dissenting score in the Casey O'Neill Roxanne Modafferi fight. He gave it 29-28 to Modafferi, where she definitely, didn't maybe won the last round, but definitely had no chance. And then the last fight of the prelims, the Andrei Arlovsky, Jared Vanderaa, he gave the fight to Vanderaa, where it was Arlovsky just picking apart Vanderaa. And I know it's Texas. We talk about judging a lot, but this is a guy that's only been judging for 2 years, since 2020, and only UFC shows. Like, you have to at least get him out there on the regional scene or something.
How does that work?
How does it? I don't understand how you can let a judge just only do the UFC shows in Houston or in Texas and not clearly know what he's doing.
Who is he? Did he fight?
So he doesn't fight, but guess where he has a day job? NASA. This guy works in astrophysics. So he's clearly an intelligent person, but not intelligent enough to judge a fight. He was not cleared for takeoff. He was a bad judge in a state that's known for bad judging.
Well, this is another issue, just like the weight cutting, that has been ongoing forever. And a lot of these judges, like before MMA was a big, you had it in boxing too, because it's been around forever. But these people have no idea what they're doing. It's actually crazy that a lot of them are like, I remember in Quebec, like so many, there's like these 75-year-old commissioners that never fought, never trained. They're ex-cops, and they just got a part-time job after they retired, and they have no idea what they're watching. They're just kind of guessing. And there's like, that should not be, these people should be educated, experienced, and experts on what they're watching and how they're scoring. So It's crazy. It's everywhere. It's not just this state or this province. It's all over the place. So it's just, I think, more uh, systems have to be put in place, and yeah, you must have to start on a regional level and work your way up to be able to do the top.
You cannot just start at the UFC and judge everything in tech and don't work any of the regional, like a Fury FC or any other regional promotion.
It'd be like me going and commentating in the UFC my first show and not starting at a amateur level, you know what I mean? Or, you know, it's even worse than that, really. But yeah, it's crazy.
No, it's like someone that's like, I'm going to get in the financial industry, and they're like, you're running a Fortune 500 company first day, and it's just like, hey, that company's now out of business because if you're hurt, like, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know anything about that. But I don't know. I just thought it was crazy. We know Texas is known for bad judging, but to only be judging pretty much for 2 years with like, I don't. Obviously, Texas needs to get their stuff together, but hopefully we never see this. And I've never heard as well the commentary kind of bury a judge as much as they, and rightfully so. And this is where to me the open scoring needs to be a thing. Can you imagine hearing that scorecard as a fighter and like, what? Like either the fighter that thinks they're winning very much or knows the other two judges have scored it for you. I gotta go for a finish and go for it. And the other fighter's gonna go for it. So it's gonna make for an interesting fight. And you're also holding that judge accountable.
Well, can you imagine like when that guy held up his red or green sign for who he thought won? Everybody, the cameras on him, everybody just looking at him like, you know. Again, I hate bearing these guys because it is a difficult job and it's not one that is great, but you got to have some accountability, you know.
And I don't know. I get the commissions are always looking out for their people, but like they're not allowed to give press conferences or why did you score the fight that way? What was their terrible decision is out there, and that's why they're left to be ridiculed because they don't get to defend themselves or their logic on what they were seeing or anything of that. Like they just have to sit there and take it, and then we won't see this judge until the next show in Houston.
Yeah, but yeah, they should have a little platform where they can defend themselves or give reasons why they did what they did, and at least giving them a chance to explain themselves. Most of the time it's probably just inexperience and they have no idea what they're looking at and watching, but at least people can see them talking and maybe this is the guy, these guys judging your fight. Don't let it go to the judges.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, like in the NFL or the NBA, like the referee by name and you see their face if they make a bad call that ends up costing a team or anything, puts them in a rough spot, late in a game or whatever. And we talk about that official by name, and we have mistakes to go with.
Yeah, when we were in the Ultimate Fighter, I remember specifically everybody who like they wanted Herb to ref their fight, or but they didn't want what's her name?
Steve Mazzagatti.
Well,
Kim Fields.
Kim Fields. Is it Kim Fields? I thought it was something else. But yeah, I think you're right. The tall blonde girl.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody.
The one that nearly let Jan Finney die at the hands of Cyborg.
I don't know.
Strike Force.
Yeah. But yeah, everybody's like, oh my God, hopefully I don't get hurt. But it's the same thing, right? It's just the judge. I hope you don't get that judge.
I don't know. It's just abominable. I was happy to hear commentary kind of take their shots at them. And this judge worked 2 fights back to back that were so bad. Thankfully, we didn't see this man the rest of the night. Like, thankfully, they removed him for his incompetence. And I promise this is actually the last thing on this card. But as I said, Casey O'Neill fought Roxanne Modafferi. This was Roxanne's final fight. That's a cast member for you on Tough 18. You have any fun Roxanne stories? Because overall, she's a gem, a pioneer of women's mixed martial arts. It's done so much for MMA as a whole. And last is to see that of a dying breed of that level of women's mixed martial artist now no longer do her thing.
Yeah, man, Roxanne's an OG. Like I remember before I even started fighting for sure. I might not even been training yet. I was just like a fan. And we drove out to Chicago, me and Linda and a bunch of guys that went to a strike force. And it was Fedor and Rogers. And
Brett Rogers.
Yeah, it was great. And then I remember being there and I was like, and they introduced Roxanne was on the card. And I'm like, who is this? Like, she looks like this little like schoolgirl, nerdy girl that like, I'm like, she's fighting tonight? Like, this is crazy. And then I watched her fight and I think she lost it, but I was just like, wow, that I did not expect that from her. Just does not look the part at all. Does not look like a fighter. And then, getting to know her in the house, she is, Yeah, she is. She's like a super like socially awkward, nerdy, anime loving person,
Mhm.
but like super, super sweet, so nice, such a nice person, you know what I mean? Like you don't ever think she's a fighter, to be honest, because she's just so kind. But she prides herself on being a martial artist, and that's what she is. And yeah, man, she it's sad to see her go because she is, like you said, last of a dying breed. And I say I'm like a vet. She puts me to shame with as far as being a veteran in the sport. So yeah, sad to see her go, but she had a great career and she should be very proud.
Yeah, Roxanne made her professional MMA debut back in 2003. I was still
Right.
in grade school. I don't know what you were doing, Josh, but I was definitely
I was in high school.
nowhere. Yeah, I was. We were nowhere near thinking of anything with mixed martial arts at that point in time when she went into Japan in Smack Girl. Like she's fought in promotions that like I don't even know if they still exist. Like definitely Smack Girl doesn't, but like Hook and Shoot. And like
Yeah.
she's fought anyone who's been anyone in women's MMA, like Tara LaRosa a couple times, Shayna Baszler, Marlos Kunin, who said was on that Strikeforce card where she fought. I
Was
remember the
that was
first
it
time
Marlos? Yeah, it was her, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
it was
that's right.
that was that fight you went to. The first time I remember Roxanne, and I hate to bring it up that she lost, but when she fought Sarah Kaufman for the Strikeforce bantamweight title, and Sarah like power bombed her out of an armbar and knocked her
Right,
out.
right.
That was the first memory I had. But Roxanne, 2 appearances on The Ultimate Fighter with you and Tough 18, and then she came back on Tough 26, and you know what? She definitely, some may call her an overachiever, but she's done so much for the sport. And really, she's one of those people in MMA that you really can't say anything bad about. And that's
No.
a testament to her character and her as a person in a sport where I'm sure everyone said something bad about anyone and everyone.
Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah, she's just just so positive. If you had to pick one word, she'd be positive.
Yeah, and you know what? And shout out to her for also making weigh-ins interesting with whatever anime character or whatever she dressed up as. She at least made that aspect a little interesting. So thank you for everything you've done, Roxanne, Roxy, Modafferi, the Happy Warrior. Happy trails to you. Let's transition here, Josh. Obviously, a little bit of time. Pretty interesting week of MMA because not only is there a UFC and a Bellator on Saturday, but Friday, start of the PFL Challengers as well. I don't know if you're going to check it out or be that interested in it, but they're starting their version of building up, their own contenders, which I think is good. Not just, oh, this person's coming in here or whatever. And they're going to award a contract per weight class, 4 fights per weight class. Someone's getting a contract. And there are investors as well. Their celebrity investors are going to be judging. And I guess having the final judging, like having the final say, not like putting the 30-27s on there. I know people got that like Ray Lewis is judging an MMA fight. No, he's maybe deciding if you're going to, fight in the season going forward. But I don't know. I like this idea of it. I mean, and it's, a month's worth of Friday night fights for the PFL who look to have a big year here in 2022.
Yeah, I'm all for it, man. It gives another like kind of side platform to kind of work your way into the PFL and into the season. So yeah, I think it's a cool idea. This is something that like this is. I mean, I guess UFC does it with the Contender Series kind of already. That's kind of their version of it. I would like to see Bellator do it too. Usually, what Bellator does is they put like the first few fights on their card with guys with very minimal experience on a 1-fight deal. And then if they do like the guy and it's impressive, they might sign him to a multi-fight exclusive deal. But I think that they should have their own show, you know what I mean, and kind of build up the, younger or less experienced guys there and kind of build them into the roster like the PFL is doing. So I like it.
I think this challengers or contender series type thing that they're doing has worked in the past. Strikeforce used to do it back in the day. Elite XC even had it with their Show XC shows way back in the day when I was first getting into MMA as a diehard. And look, it's worked out. Like, pardon?
It's the farm league. You go there, you go to the big show, right?
But like, look at how well it's worked out. Like Tyron Woodley, second time we mentioned him, but he was a Strikeforce challenger guy that was main eventing those, getting upgraded to Strikeforce shows, and then eventually seasoned enough when he went to the UFC, went on a run and was a welterweight champion. And at one point thought, arguably one of the top 5 greatest welterweights of all time. And in some people's eyes, he may still be that. But I think it's a great thing. And as well, you're getting your own form of talent. You're not relying on, here's this X guy coming on in from whatever. You're building, trying to establish your own stars going forward. And I'm with you. Bellator, you have Showtime. I'm sure Showtime would love to have some more fights on there. Why not? You did it. It had success with Strikeforce. Get it to have some success with yourself and, build some prospects up because, that's the lifeblood of everything in this sport.
Yeah, 100%, man. I agree. I like that system.
I love it too. But yeah, as we said, there is a UFC as well. This one's not really the most overall exciting. There have been some changes and, opponents falling out and what have you. But main event does seem like, I guess, a unique one. Johnny Walker, Jamal Hill, light heavyweight fight. I feel like Johnny Walker, he really needs this win after looking like people thought, the next Anderson Silva at light heavyweight with how quickly he blasted opponents, but has really kind of steadied off.
Yeah. I don't even know where he's at right now. As far as, win streak losses, I kind of just, I don't really remember, to be honest.
His last fight was in October against Thiago Santos. I never thought, oh man, that's going to be a really exciting fight. And it was kind of a very technical snoozer fight. Santos kind of held him up against the fence, did a lot of good groundwork, just scoring points. No one really looked to finish or anything of that nature, but Santos did win. But he's fighting a guy
that his arm broke, right?
Yeah, so Jamal Hill had his arm broken by Paul Craig, but then came back at the end of 2020. He beat Jimmy Crute and flattened him pretty decisively in under a minute. Yeah. Okay. And now he's getting that step up against Johnny Walker.
Well, that should be a good fight, I think, between those two.
Yeah.
Stylistically. So yeah, I think that's an exciting one.
I think I would take Jamal Hill in this one. I just feel like he vibes in that kind of quick, fast-paced fight, and it seems like Johnny, since going over to Ireland and training with the SBG guys, has kind of slowed his roll down, not trying to be too quick to get things going. And I think Jamal may catch him quickly and get a finish in the first round or early second.
Yeah, I can't root against a guy with his last name Hill, right? So I'll take Hill.
Exactly. You get Jay Hill too.
Jay Hill.
Yeah, you gotta pick up on that one. As well, I mean, anytime Jim Miller fights, shout out to him. I like to see that going on as well. Shannon Hellinger as well, making his UFC debut on that show after picking up a contract on the Contender Series.
Cool. Yeah, I like
Canadian.
What's his name?
Chad and Hellinger.
Oh yeah, Chad. Yeah, he's 35 or 25.
Yeah, he's a bantamweight.
Yeah.
Champions Creed guy.
That's right. Yeah, that's sweet. Yeah, I like to see. I want to see Checo. Who's he fighting?
Jesse Strader.
Don't know him, but
second fight for Jesse. He lost back in last March to Montel Quick Jackson, 2 minutes into the first round after a surprisingly nice little successful run in Combate.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that's sweet, man. Another Canadian boy.
Yeah, you know what? More Canadians in the UFC, the better. And then winding things down, though, Josh, Bellator, they're back with another card, head-to-head with an event, another Saturday night for Bellator. And you know what? The Saturdays they've picked, it's kind of worked out for them, where they may have the advantage in some aspects where there is a reason to tune in. It's not like there's a major fight on the UFC that you need to go out of your way to see. So it works out for Bellator, though. Neiman Gracie, Logan Storley, good fight. I don't know if it's going to attract the viewers you're hoping for, but a very pivotal fight in that welterweight division.
Yeah, I mean, it's more like the more wrestler versus grappler based fight. It's big implications. Two top guys, so I don't know who to pick in that. I'm gonna go. I'll go Storley.
I'm leaning Storley too. Don't get me wrong. Neiman Gracie, his last time against Mark Lemminger, he looked great with the stand-up. But I just feel Storley's going to find a way to, wrestle him, land some good ground and pound on Neiman Gracie and probably win a decision and set himself up in line for that, the next welterweight title fight. down the line. So there is that. There's also Andre Korshkov, former Bellator welterweight champion, taking on Chance Rencourt, who I think that's a good pickup for Bellator, making his debut. Had some time, not really his re-debut, but fought many years ago when we probably weren't paying attention to him in Bellator, but came in, fought in the UFC, picked up 2 wins out on the regional side, and now returns to Bellator with a little bit more seasoning.
Nice, yeah. I mean, Korshkov's a killer, so it's a tough fight for anybody. So yeah, I'd like to see him fight.
Yeah, the show's taking place at your favorite venue in Unkinsville at Mohegan Sun. I don't know. There are some interesting fights, like for the heavyweights, 2 good heavyweight prospects, Davian Franklin, Syed Swama. Swama's a former Titan FC heavyweight champion, and Franklin's just been a nice find for Bellator, pretty much a homegrown Bellator guy, and 3 of his 4 wins are first round KOs, TKOs.
Heavyweight you said?
Yes, heavyweight, yes.
Yes, I mean, yeah, they need it, right? Like their heavyweight division, they need to bolster that, so that's good.
I did touch on this last week, Georgie Carrahani and Adam Piccolati. I think that's a really good fight. Yeah. And I'm happy to see they got Georgie to re-sign, because Georgie's been in Bellator since the Bjorn Rebney days. And, he did go away, came back, but looked fantastic in his last performance in Bellator. And I think that's a guy that Bellator needs, someone with lineage in the promotion and that still has the potential to make a run going forward.
Yeah. And he's a guy that, he was fighting at 45 too, and it might have been just too much for him. It might be healthier, better at 55. So yeah, versus Piccolati, that's a good fight.
And last thing on this Bellator card, it's the return of Irish Brennan Ward. Do you remember Brennan Ward back in the days?
I remember that name. Yeah, I remember that name. Yeah.
So Brennan was one of those guys that, young kid, talked a lot of trash, but backed it up with his hands. Unfortunately, we probably remember him on the wrong side of that Paul Daly flying knee back in like early 2017. Yes. That was the second last fight that he had some fights fall through. But he's back, and I'm happy he's back in Bellator, because he's one of those guys that has some experience in the promotion, usually is an exciting fighter. Now it's interesting to see, he may not look the best in this performance, having a little bit of ring rust, but he always brings an exciting fight, and he always cuts one hell of a promo.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, it's interesting to see a guy that's been away that long too, and see if he is he the same guy? Is he better? As he changes game? It's a mystery kind of see what he's going to be like.
He tried to get into like the realm of things, bare knuckle boxing, custom rules fights, grappling, had some, things fall out due to illnesses and injuries. So he's now obviously taken that time, recuperated, and is just, healthy and probably mentally recharged and more mature getting back into the MMA game. And I think it's a win for Bellator to hopefully have him get a good performance here against the 500 Brandon Bell. Yeah,
I think they're kind of, not giving him a gimme, but they're giving him a nice little comeback gift.
They're giving him a Barry Horowitz or one of those. Not like you want to say that I'm sorry to Brandon Bell and his family, but you're kind of in there for making a competitive fight, but you may be on the end of a highlight reel knockout.
Here's your chance to prove everybody wrong, right?
Exactly. You know what? On that UFC card, Jacob Malkoun, a guy who I literally thought was not UFC, caliber or worthy to be on here, and he shut down AJ Dobson, this high prospect that got a contract in the Contender Series. And the first thing he said was, "I proved a lot of people wrong." I'm like, "Damn right, I'll never doubt you again." You out wrestled a guy that trains with Mark Coleman, the godfather of ground and pound and successful high level wrestling in MMA, and you out wrestled him and dominated him for 2 out of 3 rounds.
Records can be deceiving, right? Sometimes, he might have started his career shit and went in the whole 1-4, and then just kind of built himself and trained properly and then, advanced. So who knows? You never really know. Records are deceiving.
Records are deceiving. That's why it's all about what happens in the cage. So that's pretty much for this week coming up and looking back at this past weekend's UFC. So we'll wind things down here, Josh. We'll be back next week to break down all the happenings of mixed martial arts. And before we get out of here, when are you stepping back in the cage? I've seen you tease. You got some fight news, but I guess we can't go with it yet.
Not yet. But hopefully soon. Anyways, I'm
Well,
hoping.
hopefully soon. Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it'll be. I'm hoping April. Okay, I'll say that. I'm really hoping.
I was gonna say April, May, because Bellator doesn't have anything for April yet.
Oh, they do. They just haven't
Well,
announced.
it's just, I mean, publicly announced. I mean, I'm like, they have to have something for April. This is a promotion that can't be like March and then we'll see you in May. Like that.
No, they got 2 in February. They had 2 in March, and then they already have May booked. So yeah, they got April. They got some stuff going on there. I'm hoping that anyway.
Oh, let's hope April showers bring many fights for you and maybe the rest of the bantamweight division in 2022. So with that, we'll wind things down here for my broadcast partner, the gentleman Josh Hill. I'm Jason Hagcomb. Peace out. We'll see you all next week.